Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm continuing the series videos. So today we have series 4. And I wanted to add something that I didn't when I first talked about series 1. And with the exception of series 2, who was almost on theme, I felt the earlier Living Dead Dolls series that didn't have a theme, I felt they had the most iconic characters. Like, these are characters that stand on their own, and you don't necessarily have to complete the series, if you know what I mean. I mean, I'm not advocating not to complete the series, but these characters stand on their own because they don't need a theme to make sense, to take presence. And I just felt, with especially series 1 to 4, very iconic characters, many of them who were resurrected, except one. I'll get into that in a moment. And I just find it fascinating that once Living Dead Dolls had themes, I feel a lot of those dolls were not as memorable without conjuring the theme that they fit in, if that makes sense. So, without further ado, let's get into this iconic series with Miss Eerie. Now, Miss Eerie, which I'm going to start things off, I'm not sure she had a handmaid. So, again, during my research, the guys themselves, the co-creators, have admitted that they haven't documented every handmaid they've ever made. Something they kind of realized in hindsight that maybe they should have done. So in my research, whatever I could find on the internet and in printed material, I did not find anything to let me know that she was a previous handmaid. So if you know, definitely comment below. I definitely would appreciate it, and where I could find an image of that. But just so you know, I'm not sure if she had a handmaid. Her death date has 2 possible references. So when I was researching her date, which is June 11th, 2002, in my research it said it was 1 year. It was a 1-year anniversary of the final day of convicted criminal Timothy McVeigh. I'm not going to go into detail who he was, what he did. You can look that up. Personally, I wasn't satisfied with that answer, so I dig a little deeper, and I actually came across something related to David Bowie. Same day, same year, David Bowie kicked off his Heathen tour at the Roseland Ballroom in New York City. Great concert venue, by the way. And not sure if that's who they were referencing. Part of me thinks it may be because Miss Eerie has these cool spider design in her veil. And if you're familiar with David Bowie, there's a song, Ziggy Stardust, and they mention spiders. So that made me think that maybe that death day referred to that launch of the concert, because Series 4 did debut in September of 2002. So the guys could have easily been fans of David Bowie and heard about this tour and gave her that date. I'm leaning to that as the possibility instead of Timothy McVeigh. It doesn't seem to make sense. On the other hand, Miss Eerie comes with this funeral wreath, which, you know, if you read what it says rotten pieces. So yeah, so there's a case to be said that her death date could be 2 things. And, you know, again, Living Dead Dolls is all about the macabre, death, and what have you. So, you know, I guess I wouldn't take the rotten pieces to heart. I mean, you are at a funeral, and heck, her story, she might have hated the person who died, which she's in funeral wear. So do that with you what you will with that information. But this funeral wreath, simple cardboard with fabric roses glued to it. Very hard to stand, so if you want to display her with the funeral wreath, I use this to prop it up. It works very well against the shelf. Now, Miss Eerie, very much like series 1 through 3, very limited articulation, so she doesn't really stand well on her own for the most part, so she's pretty much leaned against the wall of my shelf like all the other characters. She is not expensive. She's actually the cheapest of all the dolls in series 4. Her price range, like over 3 years time that I've looked, about $40. And I paid $31 for her, sealed in box. And, you know, there's not much to her. She's very simple. And fun fact, if you say her name fast enough, Miss Eerie is Misery. And I learned when you have a phrase or a word that sounds like something else, is called an oronym. I thought it was an interesting fact to share. Very similar to Loose Sapphire. It sounds like Lucifer if you say it fast enough. So Miss Eerie had the same thing. I'm not sure if there's another doll that has the same thing as Lou and Miss Eerie. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But for years, I never knew that there was a term for that. So I thought it was cool, a cool fact to learn. And if you want to see a close-up of her face, go. And, you know, her dress is very simple. Yes, she will be stained underneath. And that's it. You know, she has cute little painted toes. She came to the funeral in style. And that's it. I wish her resurrection, which I will talk about later, had the same type of hat, you know, the veil. It was very disappointing. And there's a lot of things I do feel about dolls that have been resurrected. But that will be for the resurrection videos. And that is Miss Eerie. Okay. Next is my favorite doll of series 4, Lulu. I am a sucker for a roller skate doll. Lulu is the first with roller skates, and they actually move. Really cool. Now, the cool thing about Lulu is that she was inspired based on Ed Long's ex-wife, Becky. So her death date of August 17th, 1978, it could be safe to say that it was Becky's birth date. I actually looked that up on the pages, and I believe she was a member of the page, and I saw that there was a birthday shout out to her, so that confirmed that that is her birth date. She also has 2 distinct features that later will be repeated in Living Dead Dolls run. She's the first doll with no eyebrows. See? No eyebrows. Another doll will have that distinction later in Series 6 with Dottie Rose. She's also the first with a tattoo. Look how cool that tattoo is. It says Hell on Wheels. Love it. So she predates Psychobillies. And if you're interested to know about Psychobillies, I did do a video of them from my Tower Records exclusive. So I highly recommend checking that out. Lulu also has a compound fracture with a little bone sticking out. And she has this little sleeve on her arm. Like, I think she might have sprained her arm. And she has actual metal earrings that haven't oxidized, which is pretty cool. Now, to let you know, if you buy her mint in coffin, like with many Living Dead dolls, the females, if they came with these clear ties, just to let you know, they will have long since disintegrated. again, this series came out in September 2002. So it's 24 years since these dolls came out. Very old. And if you do buy her loose and she's missing that, you can easily replace them with clear goody ties, which is what I did with mine, because I did buy her mint in box and they did disintegrate over time. And she's just such a cute doll. Also, for you to be aware, one of the common things that's usually missing or damaged is her skates. They can pop off. They're not very secure, if you want to look at that real close. So just to let you know, do your research, make sure you look at those pictures carefully. And that is Lulu. And next, and my favorite of Series 4, is Macumba. Now, Macumba, sadly, is the only doll in Series 4 or the earlier series that has not been resurrected, which is a travesty. But, as I will discuss later in Resurrections, that might be for the best. Macumba has long been championed for a resurrection doll. Every year when they've announced dolls, their characters to be resurrected, everyone, including myself, have wanted Macumba to be resurrected. But I feel, when I get into those resurrection series, I feel whatever we as fans have in our minds for a resurrected doll probably would not have been executed in line with our visions. We probably would have been disappointed, I feel. And you'll see what I mean when I do discuss the Resurrection series. So let's get back to the man of the hour. Oh, before I go into him, Lulu will set you back around $60, $67, $80, depending on the condition. I paid $55 for Lulu. So just to let you know. And back to Macumba. Now, Macumba is a interesting character. So he has the stylings and the coding of someone from New Orleans who practices voodoo. And I say that because he has a voodoo doll, which is very synonymous with voodoo, the doll. But his name, Macumba, is actually a religion that's practiced in Brazil, which has similarities to voodoo, but is distinct and is not interchangeable with voodoo. So I thought the creators, when they made Macumba, I mean, maybe they came across the name, thought it was cool sounding, but I felt like, if you're going to do something New Orleans or voodoo, maybe give him the name of someone from the region or a region inspired name. I just felt like it was kind of, I don't know, I felt like it lacked the research on their part and, kind of borders on a little bit of ignorance. So I wish they, put a lot of thought into that. And personally, I never really thought about it until I did research for the dolls for this video. I had no idea Macumba was a religion. Never heard of it before. And again, it's not synonymous with voodoo. It has similarities, but they're not interchangeable. Just to inform you. His death date also, New Orleans voodoo, is the death date of famed voodoo queen Marie Laveau, June 15th, 1881. And, again, they could have picked a better name. I mean, I'm not familiar with names from New Orleans, but one name that comes to mind, because I'm an X-Men fan, you could have named him Remy. Gambit is named Remy. Again, that might be stereotypical, but I feel it's better than naming him after a religion that has nothing to do with voodoo or even the region that Macumba is from. So besides the voodoo doll he comes with, he has this bone necklace, which will be used later on as a belt for another doll in Series 7 with Envy. He comes with this cool hat with his little bone on it. He has this cool face paint. And the hat does have a rubber band that keeps it on his head. He has thick yarn hair. Really cool. He predates Misery in terms of the yarn hair, and I believe Misery's hat is very similar in style to Macumba's. I think it's just missing the skull. Okay, he has these drawstring pants. This is real rope material. And again, there's not much to him. You could see that he's kind of bent waist up. That's how I had to pose him in earlier dolls. So, you know, again, because of the limited articulation. And that's it. That's all I have to say about Macumba. He, like Miss Eerie, is also very inexpensive. He can run you about $35 to $50, depending on the condition. I paid $26 for him. And again, you know, you could do your research. You could wait around for prices, because when Series 4 came up, they actually increased their production run by 1,000 from Series 3 at 9,000. So just to keep that in mind. Okay, and that is Macumba. Now the next two dolls, very interesting, in that they are the reason that Living Dead Dolls was banned from a country. So we're going to go into Inferno first. I love Inferno. She has a fashion victim, which I absolutely adore. I did a video of her fashion victim on my channel, so please check it out. She's the first with these retractable wings, okay, which Living Dead Dolls will repeat in other dolls. Some of those dolls who have these wings, they're kind of hit or miss. See how perfectly her wings stay spread out in position? Sometimes the dolls will be like this, and it's hard to keep up. But mine stands perfect. Don't mind Sybil. Okay. All right. She doesn't come with any accessories. But come on. Look at these wings. She doesn't have to. She has this cool dress. Multiple flame dress. Yes, it does stain her body. So if you ever looked at her arms, for example, you're going to see the staining. Okay? That's just something LDD dolls have with the black clothing. She has two horns, very similar to Sin, and they're also flocked. Wait, actually, hold on. No, they're not flocked. Sins are flocked. These are not. They're hard plastic. Okay? And just look at her face. So cool. And unlike Sin, she doesn't have a tail, which I thought why she didn't. I thought it was curious why she didn't come with a tail. But maybe because she has the wings, maybe the tail had been too much, probably. She also has painted fingernails. Look how cute that is. So she's a stylish little demon. And she has these red socks and, of course, the traditional Mary Jane shoes. Okay. Now, her death date is related to an occultist. Her death date is December 1st, 1947. The occultist was from Britain. His name was Aleister Crowley. And I don't know much about him. Well, I didn't did the research, but he's highly regarded in terms of intellect. So, if you want to look into him, by all means. And she is also up there in price, not as expensive as Sybil and Lulu. Well, Sybil I'll get to in a moment. So, but she can run you about $50, $60. I paid $50 for her Minton box. And that's all I have to say individually about Inferno. And that is Inferno. Last but certainly not least is Sybil. Sybil is one of the most popular characters in Living Dead Dolls run. It's not a hyperbole. She's very, very sought after, both her original and her resurrection, which, if you saw my video of Living Dead Dolls haul for 2025, I just recently came into possession of her resurrection doll. And Sybil, in addition to Inferno, they were the reasons that Living Dead Dolls was banned in Greece. So what happened was that the government, and I'm just going to read us the article I came across, they said that they deemed Living Dead Dolls a serious threat to the smooth formation and development of the child's personality and mental health. And that's the thing when it comes to the word doll. And of course, when it comes to toys and of the like, dolls, unlike action figures, for example, I feel they are strictly synonymous with kids, whereas action figures, not so much. I mean, yes, kids play with action figures, but when you have something like Star Wars, for example, which has made action figure collecting an adult hobby, then you wouldn't have those outcries or these criticisms that they're too adult, they're too immature, when an action figure is made for adults. But for some reason, dolls back then were still strictly viewed as playthings, mainly for little girls, in the same line as like Madame Alexander, for example. So it was so bad in Greece that if a shop was found to carry the dolls, they were forced to pay a fine of almost 60,000 euros just for selling them. Now, I don't know if Greece upheld this ban during Living Dead Dolls' entire run. I am not sure. But 2 other countries were also inspired to ban them. Ireland and Singapore were the 2 countries that considered banning them. Now, with all that drama, I don't want to forget to talk about this amazing character's features. So, Sybil herself, her name is based on a woman whose alias for many, many years was named Sybil Isabel Dorset. And she was one of the early documented cases of personality dissociative disorder, which is also known as split or multiple personalities. Now, there's been controversy surrounding that diagnosis and that woman. Later, her name was revealed to be Shirley Mason. There was a well-received movie featuring starring Sally Field, and there was a book the movie was based on. I read the book actually in high school, and I thought it was such a fascinating read. I highly recommend it. It's also called Sybil. Now, her death date is the thing that really confused me. Sybil's death date. Now, because her name is based on that real individual, it's curious that the guys didn't use her birthday to be her death date, which doesn't make any sense. Instead, there's been many notable events, but the one that came out that was more salacious is the date of December 21st, 1978, was when the notorious John Wayne Gacy was arrested. This is the second time the third time I'm mentioning that individual. Again, I'm not going to be sharing any pictures or describing what he did. You can look him up. So I thought that was really curious that they gave her that death date. Now, Sybil is unique in that her arms, which I'm not going to undo, which is belted, by the way, in a straitjacket. Now, her arms are very squishy to achieve that wrapped around look with the straitjacket. She comes with this chain, and she comes with this cool eye design, which is fitting when Sybil was used to be the Mad Hatter in the Wonderland series. She has these faux leather pants, which again, just to remind you, it will peel, or it can peel, unless you take good care of it. And mine is in pretty good condition. This is a very cold room, and in the summertime, it doesn't get too hot, but I do run a dehumidifier. And again, I'm not going to undo her clothes. She comes barefoot, and yes, she has like dirt or like bruising of sorts. So if you see her loose in the wild, yes, that is part of the design of the doll. She is not damaged. That is her design. She doesn't come with accessories, but again, look how cool she is. She doesn't need them. And what else can I say about her? She will run you a lot more than the other dolls. She's very popular, highly sought after, about close to $100 sealed. I paid $40 for her, and she was opened but complete. It's still tied down to her coffin. And just to let you know, in addition to whatever accessories, they all have a death certificate. Just want to make a note of that. They do have death certificates. And that's it. That's all I have to say for Sybil. So, again, iconic characters, Series 4. And all of them are great dolls, independent of the series they're part of. So much so that when I was starting my research for this video and the other videos, I actually forget, or I always mix up Series 3 and Series 4. I've always confused myself who belonged to what series. That's how much they're independent of their series, because they really do stand well on their own. And like I said, that's all I have for them. I have to say for them. Stay tuned for my next series video, Series 5. And I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe if you like Living Dead doll content. I also have talked about other dolls before Living Dead dolls, but for now, my majority focus is Living Dead dolls. And if you're interested in learning more about these wonderful dolls, please check out my videos. Please subscribe so you'll know when I upload new Living Dead dolls content. And remember, do your research. And for Series 4, just like the other early series, you know, you really could wait around for good deals. I wouldn't pay anything more than $100 for, like, say, Sybil, for example. But like Macumba and Miss Eerie, you should easily be able to get them for, even if it's not $50, $60 at most, you really could get them for a deal. And remember, they don't come with much. Like, for example, Sybil doesn't come with anything but her death certificate. So, you know, if you just want the doll, you could easily get her with the death certificate, and that's it. Same thing with Inferno. She only comes with a death certificate. As long as she has her wings intact, you know, she's good. And with Macumba, again, he has a little voodoo doll. But you could really get these dolls, I feel and believe, at a decent price. No need to pay through the nose. And as always, happy hunting.